This will be for the Khan Academy exercise Arithmetic Series. So an arithmetic series is a series of numbers that are added together, and each term in the series has the same amount added or subtracted from the previous term. Okay, so this would be an example of an arithmetic series. Notice to go from 3 to 7, you would add 4, and then to go from 7 to 11, again you would add 4, and it keeps going until you get to the last term. So you're adding or subtracting the same amount from the previous term each time. So the formulas that you will need for this exercise, actually I'll go over the variables first. S represents the sum, A sub 1 represents the first term in the series, A sub n is the nth term in the series. Okay, most of the time it's the last term. D is the amount that is added to the previous term, and n is the number of terms. Alright, so to find the sum, this is the main formula. To find the sum of an arithmetic series, you basically just add the first and last terms and then divide by 2. Okay, and that will basically just be the average of the first and last terms. And you take that number and you multiply it by n, the number of terms. Alright, now if they don't give you the number of terms, the formula for finding the number of terms, you subtract the last term minus the first term and then divide by d, the amount that's added each time. Now you take that and you do plus 1. That will give you n, the number of terms. And finally, to find the nth term or the last term, it's going to be the first term plus the amount you add or subtract each time times n minus 1. Okay, so these are the formulas you'll be using for this exercise. So just briefly, if this was our arithmetic series, the first term is 2, so that would be A1. The last term is negative 16, so generally speaking that would be AN. And the amount that's added or subtracted each time, well, let's see, how do we get from 2 to negative 1? That would be subtracting 3, right? How do we get from negative 1 to negative 4? Subtract 3. So the amount we're adding each time would be negative 3. So just in case you don't see how I got D, you just take any term and subtract the previous term. So let's say we have this term, negative 4, and we subtract the previous term, negative 1. So that'd be 4 minus negative 1. The two negatives make it positive. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. Okay, so take any term and subtract the previous one to get D. Okay, so here they want us to find the sum of this series. It's in sigma notation. And we have our formula for the sum of an arithmetic series. It's the average of the first and last terms times the number of terms. Okay, so A1 would be the first term. So we're plugging in the initial value for K, which is 1. Okay, that will give us 5. Times 1 minus 87. Okay, so that's 5 minus 87. That's going to be negative 82. So A1 is going to be negative 82 in place of A1. And then we need to find the last term, A sub n. So the last number we're plugging in for K is going to be 40. Okay, you just plug that in for K. So that's going to be 5 times 40 minus 87. Okay, 5 times 40, that's 200. Minus 87, that's going to be 113. Okay, that's the last term, a sub n. So in place of a sub n, we're adding 113. The average of those two numbers, so we have to divide by 2, and then the whole thing gets multiplied by n, the number of terms. So we started with k equals 1, we went up by 1 each time, and we ended with 40, so there's 40 terms. So I'm going to do this on the calculator, and I get 620. Okay, so just click inside the box and type 620. Alright, so this whole thing was 620. And just so you understand this notation, we've done this before, but let's say you plugged in k equals 1, okay, and we got negative 82, and then you plug in, you increment k by 1 unit, 1 interval each time. So we're plugging in k equals 2 for the next term, that'd be 10 minus 87, so that's negative 77, and then we plug in k equals 3, that'd be 15 minus 87, so that's negative 72, and so on. Okay, so you can see we are basically adding 5 each time. We could have determined that just from looking at the formula here, but we didn't need to know that we were adding 5 each time. I'm just showing you what the series would have looked like. So you don't have to do this step for this problem. Okay, here they want us to find the sum of the first 28 terms in the sequence. We have our formula for the sum of an arithmetic sequence. Okay, and since we're looking at 28 terms, n is the number of terms, so n is going to be 28. Okay, we can see the first term, a1, a sub 1, that's 92. And we need to find the last term, a sub n. So if you recall at the beginning, the formula for finding the nth term, it's going to be the first term plus d times n minus 1. Okay, this was our formula here. Now, you can see from this formula right here, d is going to be negative 8. Okay, we're subtracting 8 each time. If you don't see it, let's say a sub I is going to be a sub 2. And then this is I minus 1. So that's going to be 2 minus 1, which is just 1. And then minus 8. So in order to get the second term, you take the first term and then it's minus 8. Okay? And it's going to continue like that. If you did a sub 3, it would be a2 minus 8. So you're always going to be subtracting 8 from the term that was before it. Okay, so clearly d is going to be negative 8 because you're just subtracting 8 each time. So if we take the first term, that's 92, and we add d, that's negative 8, times n minus 1. Okay, we said n was 28, so it's actually going to be 28 minus 1. Okay, and of course 28 minus 1 is just 27. So on the calculator, I'll do 92 plus negative 8 times 27. And I get negative 124 for my last term. So now we can use the sum formula. The first term, a1, is 92. The last term is negative 124. we're taking the average of those two numbers, so we're dividing by 2. N is the number of terms. We said that's 28. So you want to do this whole thing on the calculator first, hit equals, and then multiply by 28. And I get negative 448. So you just click inside the box and type negative 448. Okay, they want us to find the sum of this series. So we're going to use our summation formula. Okay, we can see a sub 1, the first term, is 48. We can see the last term, a sub n, is negative 84. And we're going to need to find the number of terms, n. Now, if you look at this, to go from 48 to 45, that's going to be minus 3. To go from 45 to 42, that's going to be minus 3. So we're adding negative 3 each time. All right, we said D is the number we're adding each time. That's negative 3. But we don't know how many terms there are. So we had a formula for that at the beginning. And we said that n, the number of terms, is going to be the last term minus the first term divided by the amount you're adding by each time, D. And then that is going to be added to the number 1. Okay, so if you take the last term, that's negative 84. You subtract the first term, that's 48. And divide by D, that's negative 3. And then add 1 to that. So I'm going to do this on the calculator. And I get 45. So the number of terms is going to be 45. All right, the first term, A1, we said was 48. The last term was negative 84. Take the average of those two, so divide by 2. And multiply that whole thing by the number of terms, which was 45. So do this on the calculator first and multiply by 45 at the end. And I get negative 810. Final answer. So just click inside the box and type 810. Whoops, let's see what happened. Okay, it was actually negative 810, so I just missed the negative sign. Okay, so just be careful.